Are you comfy? You want to stretch? Yes, you do. You're so cute. Oh, Stephanie, thank you for the follow, by the way. That was 7 minutes. So anyway. Okay, smart girl. Do you mind? You're only over here because I have food. We all know it. We all know you're only here for food. As soon as Toasty's done. I love you. You're not scared of me. She loves me no matter what I look like. This is unconditional love. So I'm not even really sure how to start this video. I wanted to make a video highlighting what has happened with my cat Toasty and how she had to have an emergency leg amputation a few days ago. But in telling her story and why I'm in such need of help with her surgery costs, I realized that I have to tell the whole story of this year and how cursed I felt because I've just lost so much and I've been through so much. This is probably the worst year of my life. And I feel like every time I try to get back up, I get knocked back down like 10 times harder. I feel like to understand like the situation that I'm in, we have to like zoom out and look at this whole perspective of the year. Because like where I am in this little moment, there's so many things that have compounded on top of each other to get me to this position where I'm just feeling defeated. The day before Halloween started out not even like a normal day. I had a really difficult conversation I had to have with my manager, putting in my 2-week notice at my current job as a barista, where I've been working for the last year and a half, because I found a new job. It's a dog training facility, so I get to bring Moxie with me to work every day, which is going to save me hundreds of dollars I'm spending every month in dog sitting fees. So I'm transitioning between jobs right now. I felt really proud of myself for kind of overcoming that obstacle, and I get home and I'm chilling. I'm having a peaceful night. I finally finished unpacking the last box in my room from the move that I started 2 or 3 months ago that I cannot seem to get through. Now it's complete chaos behind me again because I had to scramble to make space for a recovery room for Toasty after her accident. We were having a normal night. I took really cute pictures of her and Moxie sleeping on the little animal beds that I have underneath my desk right next to my feet. They were cuddled up to each other and looking really cute. And an hour later, I'm crying and sobbing and calling my best friend to accompany me to an emergency vet at 2 o'clock in the morning. It just happened out of nowhere. One of my roommates had come in to talk to me and I left my office door open. We're still fairly new to the house. We've only been here for about 6 to 8 weeks. She's a very skittish, nervous girl, so she hasn't explored a lot. And because I was home, she probably felt braver exploring more area of the house. So she had gone into my roommate's room while we were in here talking. Toasty had gotten on top of a very tall dresser, which was decorated with a lot of fragile things, including picture frames with glass covers on them. And I'm guessing she jumped up and could not get her footing and scrambled and knocked a bunch of stuff down, and it fell down with her and broke because there was broken glass all over the floor and her blood on some of the broken picture frames. We didn't hear any of this happening. All I heard was thumping running through the house, which sounded like a kid's feet. I peeked in my room and I saw Toasty was hiding underneath a little closet system that I have. There was nothing alarming. There was no blood on the floor or anything like that. I hear my roommate say, "Oh no, it looks like Toasty did get in here. Some stuff is broken. There's a drinking glass that's broken. Don't see any blood at this point yet." So I'm just thinking like, oh no, my cat's broken some of her stuff. I'm like, okay, so Toasty must be really scared. So I go into my bedroom and crouch down and get on floor level and I start trying to coax her out. You know, Toasty, come here, paper. She starts to move towards me, lets me pet her, and she's definitely very scared and she's just crouched down. I haven't really seen her walk yet. And so I move away through the room a little bit and then she starts to follow me and I notice that she is not walking right. Something is really wrong with her. Her back leg is just kind of flopping around. I mean, it's like the Achilles tendon, the rubber band part of an animal's leg, or the back of our ankles. Like it's a really taut tendon and pew, that had just been snapped. So the bone it was holding up was just flat to the floor and flopping around behind her. I didn't know that she had been cut. I didn't know that there was a tendon issue. My thought was like, she's broken her leg, but I also couldn't tell 100% sure. So I was worried she might have had an internal injury too. Then I call my best friend, hysterical. I have to go to the emergency vet. Toasty's broken her leg. We end up at an emergency vet that's open. The first place that we went to, they couldn't help her. All they could do was give her pain medication and refer me to a surgeon. She needed surgery. And it was such a traumatic injury that her quality of life was going to be severely questionable if surgery was not performed. On Halloween day, I was back and forth with vets. Sobbing all day. I don't think I stopped crying that whole day, because with the first conversation I had with the surgeon, it was like, well, we can do reconstructive tendon repair surgery where we attach the tendon back together and sew it with tiny threads. And that's going to be a 6-week, every week you have to come in follow up for, a couple $100 a visit to have the bandages changed, everything checked, x-rays done, constant upkeep for 6 to 8 weeks after the surgery. And then after the follow-up, she's going to be like crate bound for basically a year. Constant supervision, constant monitoring. There was always the possibility that she could re-injure that tendon at any point. It could re-sever, re-snap from each other. And she would just have to have the same surgery done all over again. And she would never regain full use of her foot even after the surgery was done. And that option was going to run me, after all of the other emergency hospitalization and the emergency consultation, upwards of $6,000. This is the first time she said the word to me, but she was like, another possibility is amputation. The responsibility that I have for Toasty and being presented with these two options. Amputation had a lower risk factor. It was a pretty traumatic surgery to have done, but there's only a 2-week recovery period. Obviously no possibility for re-injury since the limb no longer exists. And it's a one and done. There's no follow-up procedures. There's no 1 year of crate rest. Like, there's going to be a month or so of monitoring her and got to go back in 2 weeks to get the sutures removed, but it's not anything like the other one. The cost was significantly less. It was $4,400 plus the emergency hospitalization plus the emergency consultation fees that I've already accrued. The vets and the vet techs and everyone I was on the phone with back and forth that whole first day all seemed to lean in the direction that amputation was going to be the least stressful, the cleanest, the easiest, the least long-term possibility for re-injury, and just an overall better quality of life, I suppose. I didn't really feel like I had much of a choice, just simply due to the financial factors involved and how, because it's an emergency vet service, they did not have payment plans. They were talking about risk of sepsis if infection set in on her leg. They had obviously given her antibiotics and were keeping the wound clean and everything. But if I had taken her home with me because I couldn't afford the surgeries right then who knows what could have happened with the wound or the injury. I exhausted a lot of questions I had on possibilities and ways to not have an amputation done. Since this has happened, the more I've researched, the more I'm seeing that a lot of people in these scenarios, because their cat broke their leg and they can't afford the surgeries, they just opt for euthanasia. I bent over backwards to get lines of credit and borrow money. Emergency vets and a lot of vets that I've experienced now from just the pets I've had over my whole life will not move forward with any procedures until the money is in hand. So I had to have the money the day of. So I'm in an incredible amount of debt right now because I love you so much. You are worth the pain. She's worth it. And this is just one of many things I've lost this year. Back in March, my dad lost his battle with an unknown cancer that he's been fighting for years. Heart attacks, cardiac problems, pulmonary issues. He finally passed in March. A week before he passed away, our family dog died of rapid onset stomach cancer. And a lot of the symptoms that he was experiencing and the questions we were being asked regarding Mojo's health were similar to what was happening with my dad at the exact same time. A couple of weeks after that, I adopted Moxie, my my dog as a coping mechanism maybe, but just to bring a little love and energy into the house, to try to ground and stabilize and give us all something to focus on besides the loss and grief. Over the summer, I was doing my best to lose myself in the mountains. I turned to hiking with Moxie. We were constantly hiking, exploring trails I'd never been to and mountain peaks I'd never gone to, and really testing myself. Even going to Ohio to visit one of my best friends. I spent a few weeks up there with Moxie and we went hiking, and it gave me a second to slow down and just breathe, collect myself, try to ground myself in the chaos of everything that was happening around me, and hopefully figure out the best path forward. When I returned, I dove in harder on hiking, and this is where on my first solo journey, I ended up getting lost. It was just another situation where every time I try to do something fun, something good for myself, something exciting, something invigorating, fueling my inner child, an emergency happens because I got lost. Through just happenstance and serendipity and beautiful, harmonious alignment, I stumble out of the woods right across the search and rescue team that was not even there for me. I hadn't been lost long enough to need search and rescue yet, but they took me back to my car. Shortly after my dad passed away, there was a partial solar eclipse that I was barely able to glimpse through the cloud cover that day. The next day, my dad's ashes arrived in the mail, and now I carry him around in a necklace with me. Within maybe 2 months, our other elderly dog, Nubbins, started to rapidly decline in health, seemed to be very similar to what had happened to Mojo. And I don't know if it was just some spiritual connection to my dad, like the lovebirds where they lose because it was my dad's dog, where they lose their partner and then they just die too. So Nubbins passed away, and tension and stress on the household put me in a position where I felt the best choice was for me to move. One of my coworkers had a spot available in her house, so I started to move in with her. And I was really excited, eager even, buying paint, ready to decorate, ready to have a fresh new start, to step away from the energy that seemed to be, swirling around my previous space. Maybe a few weeks into the moving process, when I'm about to start doing the heavy moving, the boxes and getting all of the furniture over here, I get COVID for the first time. It's been 4 years since the pandemic started, and I've managed not to get it, and I got it, and I was knocked down for 2 weeks from that. And right when I start to recover from that and I start to get back into the moving process, I return to work, I get back on my feet, and boom, Hurricane Helene. And then a couple of weeks go by, we're recovering, we're doing our best to get back on our feet, and boom, Toasty has to have her leg amputated. A month ago, at the end of September, there was a storm of the century, unprecedented hurricane Helene, that hit the Asheville area. And I live 10 minutes outside of Asheville, and we have to go into Asheville for the medical vet, the emergency vet. I mean, it's been 100 years since a storm hit like this in the mountains. We're not set up for it. We have no infrastructure for it. Mudslides happen. I-40, the interstate, got demolished in parts where there was no entry to Tennessee anymore. Literally, houses were floating away from people. We're not like Florida. We don't regularly have hurricanes. We don't have a regular evacuation protocol or emergency services that are set up to handle this. So this completely destroyed the entire area. Most of the surrounding areas of Asheville and this general region were without power for minimum 1 week. A lot of people didn't have water for a week or two, no internet, no cell service. So it was way back old school where we had to just drive around to get to people to communicate with them. And Asheville, we're like almost 6 weeks out, and Asheville still doesn't have water, running water in a lot of places. But the rest of the community is trying to come together as best as they can to support each other. And during this period, I was without work for the first week at one of my jobs and for 2 weeks at another one of my jobs. So I essentially lost 3 weeks of pay around the start of October. I showed up at the coffee shop, did my part. We got about a foot of flooding there, 2 or 3 inches of mud. It was a disgusting cleanup job. It was traumatic for the community. I spent a week working as a barista, hearing stories about how there were dead cows in trees being pulled out, serving people their their first warm drink after a week of being trapped up in the mountains with no electricity or running water, hearing about someone whose son had offed himself over the weekend during the storm and no one found him until days after or even known it had happened because of the storm. I mean, just hearing all of these stories as a barista, you know, everybody loves to tell a barista everything. So that was a really difficult week. And this was in the middle of moving. I was about 80% done moving from one house to another house when the hurricane hit. So during the hurricane, that first week, I did my best to finish up the move. I got my computer and my mattress over to the new house so that I could sleep at the new house, because at the old house, there was no more power. I was hearing stories about people pulling guns at the grocery store and knives at the gas station on each other. And the lines to get gas, I would have to wait 30 minutes to an hour just to fill up my gas tank. I went to the grocery store a day or two after the storm. The aisles were empty. People were scrambling and probably overbuying stuff because everyone was terrified and didn't know exactly what was going on. It felt a lot like the start of COVID, except a little more apocalyptic because there was just visible damage and debris and destruction. It was so strange while the hurricane was happening to see Army helicopters flying everywhere, Black Hawk helicopters serving Homeland Security at the coffee shop as a barista, Humvees driving everywhere, emergency convoys with their lights on driving down the highway, debris everywhere, community destroyed, it felt like. So that happened at the start of October. I was just barely recovering from that, getting my footing back underneath me. The city seemed to be returning to as normal as we can. And then about a week ago, our elderly family cat of 20 years finally succumbed and passed. And while I was at my mom's house on Halloween, calling desperately, trying to secure funds and communicating with the vet and committing to an amputation surgery for Toasty, our family cat's ashes arrive in the mail. This is literally the hardest pet situation I've ever dealt with, and I've had a few familiars die at this point. It's almost harder. Like, that's harder to see than to just be told they've passed. Toasty is a rescue cat that I got back in 2020 when my previous cat had passed away after an emergency surgery went bad. About a month later, I got Toasty. She's just my perfect little angel, my perfect little baby. And she's been with me through thick and thin, through so much that's happened. Me breaking my arm a few years ago when I tried to roller skate for the first time. She was there comforting me, comforting the arm, taking care of the injury. And all I can do is return the favor now. Toasty's just such a beloved little animal. I mean, to the point where she's part of my stream. Like my VTuber character, Toasty's part of that. My opening screen that I animated, Toasty's on it. 3 or 4 of my emote on Twitch are Toasty. Me and my best friends, I'll call her Toti now because of this silly video of her meeting my roommate's cat Seven for the first time, where she's hunched up just looking like a little goblin and she's just Toti. That's Toti. She's such a sweet girl. And now she's a tripod. Toasty the tripod. Oh, Toasty, it's okay. It's okay, be careful. Be careful. She's been so brave. She's trying so hard. I got her home from the vet. She was delirious. Didn't know where she was. Could not recognize me. Was fighting like hell to get out of the crates, trying to shove her face through the bars. And she was on so many pain pills that she couldn't feel the pain, so she didn't know how hard she was pressing. And I was so worried she was gonna hurt herself. She finally started settling down that first day and got a little more lucid. And I could tell she recognized me a little bit better. And she was letting me cuddle on her. I was scared we weren't gonna make it through the first night. So terrified that I was going to wake up and she wasn't going to be breathing. So I've hardly slept this whole week. After almost 36 hours being home from the surgery, she finally used the litter box on her own. And yay, Toti. Yay, Toti, you did it. and now she's eating regularly. She's happy. She's using the scratching post. She's so excited to see Moxie. She missed her. She just wants to cuddle and be held. Like, she's kind of, this morning she wanted to get up in her window seat and watch the birds. Like, she just wants to go back to normal. I can tell she's confused. Like, she doesn't understand why she can't do anything. It's almost like her legs just wrapped up and she's trying to break it free. So needless to say, I'm in a massive amount of debt. Anything helps. I still need about $4,000 to pay for all of her surgery funds, and I know that we don't have a lot to give right now. I know it's really tough, and I think that's why it's so stressful, is that it just feels like everything's going to get harder and harder from here on out. So I'm trying so hard to maintain like a positive outlook on everything and not just be like, everything's just going to keep getting worse. Because it's what it feels like. Nothing's ever going to get better. And when it does get better, there's just another bad thing right around the corner waiting to happen. And it's all just fleeting moments of pretending something terrible isn't going to happen in the future. And I don't want to have this like pessimistic, scared, traumatized worldview. But with everything that's happened, I don't know what else I'm supposed to feel. I had a friend tell me over the summer that they missed when I used to be so happy-go-lucky and positive and put everyone in a good mood around them. And I miss that too. So yeah, that's been my 2024. This has been one of the hardest years of my life, and probably the hardest. I mean, I don't want to tempt fate. I'm sure I'll have harder years in the future, but thank you so much for everyone that has helped. Thank you everyone for donating and sharing and whatever else that you might be doing. I'll see y'all on stream because I'm going to be fundraising. I'll have Toasty cams, and I'll keep updates on my Instagram story, which is the main spot that I've been updating if you want Toasty updates, because my entire life is consumed by her right now. She needs so much love and so much care and so much support, and I'm doing everything I can to be there for her. So, all right.